Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Events panel. I'm Judy Elvey, the current president of MPI UK and Ireland chapter, and I'd like to introduce you to the panel. Well, in fact, I'll get the panel to introduce themselves. So let's start with Mike.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike Piddock. I'm the founder at Glisser. We're a virtual and hybrid events technology company.
Thanks. Welcome, Mike. And Cathy.
Hello, my name is Cathy Joyce. I'm the Global Sales Director of MPI UK and Ireland at Melia International.
Fantastic. And David?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Preston. I'm CEO of Realise. We are an event services and training company, and we specialise only in the world of events.
Great. And finally, Emma, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma from Warwick Events. We're a sustainable event agency based here in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Excellent. So we've got quite a diverse panel, and really we're all in a very strange time at the moment, obviously with COVID. So that's really going to be my first question, and I'm going to go straight to David. I think, has COVID accelerated the future of events, do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Yes, I truly think it does. You know, I remember 10 years ago experimenting with, using online, having, mobile cameras, things like that, broadcasting to people who couldn't reach the event physically. But now, of course, that's the way the world is going, and we need to be moving that way even quicker. And I think, if you're not embracing the world of an online event today, you will get left behind, because the clients and the customers will be demanding the access to that sort of technology to enable them to reach a wider audience, which I think is one of the things that the technology enables us to do.
Absolutely. And Cathy, I know that you've got some feelings on this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic has created a shared experience of testing virtual events, both for meetings and work from home realities that probably would have taken 10 years to achieve. So it's forced us to rely on technology to connect with clients and colleagues. And we started to use virtual means to connect more with people. All the virtual technology providers that we have spoken with have acknowledged that virtual events will become virtual components of otherwise live events rather than replacements for them.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next question that I'll put to Mike first. Do you think this means if we're doing virtual and hybrid events that there's going to be less in-person events, or they're going to work together? How is it going to be in the future?
Yeah, so I think for the immediate future, there's obviously going to be fewer physical events because lockdown rules, travel restrictions, and even individuals' preference for not attending events because perhaps they're in the vulnerable camp, or they're simply not ready to go back to meeting people. So all of those things are going to drive fewer events in the immediate future that will be taking place physically. But at some point, we're going to transition out of that, and we're going to go through that hybrid stage that a lot of companies are now talking about. And then I think we'll end up at a position which is actually broadly hybrid for the long term, where the benefits of running a virtual component alongside a physical event have been proven. The technology's excellent, and audiences actually want to engage in that way some of the time. So I think the new world that we end up in will mean overall fewer physical events, but many events will be physical with a virtual component, I think.
And I think something that we're all probably worried about, I know that certainly all the panel, we've all got contacts in the corporate world. Is there a fear that the in-person events aren't going to come back? Because if we've been doing virtual events during this COVID time, what if our senior management team go, well, it seems to be cheaper, why would we fly everyone somewhere? Is there a real fear that actually the in-person events won't come back even when we're allowed to have them? And I'll put that to David, I think.
Yes, and my history in corporate events, myself anyway, the challenge you always have in marketing and events is justifying the budgets and the spend that we have. I think one of the things that the new sort of digital world will do for us, though, is give us more accountability for what we do, which actually means that we could just prove that the event as a whole can be more accountable to the business. And I think that will help us, continue to spend the right sort of money on doing this thing. And we were having some conversations earlier that says, if you produce it in a way that you would do a physical event with the production teams and whatever else, it doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper, but you might save on hotels and perhaps transportation costs, okay, which are not necessarily, things that we would worry quite so much about in terms of putting on the actual event itself and having great content with great speakers talking to the right sort of people. So I do think, there is a fear that if the accountants get hold of this, they'll just look at the base numbers and go, yeah, let's all do it on Zoom. But the experience that the sales team will want to have, the fact that they do want to interact directly with their customers and their prospects, will mean that we will have to come back to some level of face-to-face in the future anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've got some feelings on this as well, Cathy. Obviously, you're a venue, so when you speak to your corporates, do you think there's a fear that we're not going to be allowed to do events because of the cost or sustainability, etc.?
No, I mean, I think if you look at it from Melia on a global perspective, I mean, we're operating in over 40 destinations around the world. I mean, we trust and hope that everything will be as it was. We don't expect huge major changes. I mean, the essence of MICE is to bring people to come together, to exchange opinions, share experiences, learn, innovate, create. And it's a key area in the communication incentive strategy of the companies towards their employees. Hybrid events will definitely be in the future, but as it's been said, it will be virtual components of otherwise live events. If you look at corporates, not all their products are virtual products. So, live events and exhibitions, there will be a great opportunity, okay, the back of 2021, maybe 2022. And we're seeing in the venues that calendars are starting to fill up. So Zoom and virtual events are definitely reinforcing the need to meet people in person, and I do see the events kind of coming back, but at a later stage.
Yeah. And I should have said at the start, if any of the audience have any questions for us, if you put them on the hop-in, we'll get them to us and I'll try and get to those questions as they come up. But just going back to what you were saying about the corporates, both of you, and obviously events are changing, just the way they're being produced at the moment. So Emma, do you see that event objectives are going to change? If we're changing to virtual or hybrid, or what's going to happen to the event objectives? Are we looking at events in a different way from a corporate perspective?
I think that it's not necessarily that the objectives are going to change. I think what will be brilliant is people will actually stop and think about what is the purpose of the event. Not having had events for, what is it now, 7-8 months, albeit any small ones for under 30, we start to reflect on what we're really, really missing. You can't necessarily reward someone with a virtual experience. There are obviously products out there. We can do our kind of online cocktail making, but it's about thinking, are we going to be strategizing? Are we learning? And looking at the objective and seeing whether it's a hybrid fit or a live fit. And I think that's going to be a positive thing for the industry.
And when we're looking at event objectives, obviously something that we all have to do is measure the event. So to you, Mike, do you think that this is going to change how we measure the success of events in the future?
Well, I think the measurement of event success is something that's close to my own heart. I set up Glisser because as a marketer, I found that across my marketing channels, events were the hardest to measure, and I just didn't feel that there were enough tools out there to really prove the value. So I went about creating a company to do that, and it was designed to operate in the physical space to try and get more analytics from audiences in real time to measure their kind of engagement levels and their satisfaction. Having moved that company to virtual and hybrid in the last couple of years, what we found is that it's obviously a lot easier when everybody's sitting at a laptop anyway to gather more analytics from them, because everything that they're doing is being pulled through that virtual venue, rather than when you're in the room, you've got to convince them to get their mobile phones out and start participating and so on. So I think the experience that everyone's having now in hybrid and virtual means that event organizers will suddenly see this plethora of analytics that they've been able to get in virtual events and they're going to start demanding that in their physical events and their hybrid events as well. So I think, much like we said right at the start, this has just accelerated progress to something that I think was happening anyway, and it's just shifted us 6 years in 6 months, which given that was the reason I set up the company in the first place, it's satisfying to me that we're finally talking about events in terms of ROI and not just whether people look like they were having a good time, but actually being able to measure things.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I know that you've got some thoughts on the measurement of events as well.
Yes, no, absolutely. I've worked and had the privilege of working with reasonably large budgets of $1 million plus for 100 people. And when you go back to the CEO and tell him how did we actually, get value out of that, he's looking for real statistics. Did we make any more sales? Did we actually have any more appointments with our sales reps? All of those things, and I think we've struggled with it in the live environment, as Mike was saying, partly because it's an opt-in from the audience, and that is sort of taken away once they're in the virtual world, where they are literally opting in by just participating in the first place. So I think being able to measure it and having the whole bandwidth of measurement capabilities that the online platforms will give to us will only just enhance our ability to keep the budgets that we want, maintain the levels of budgets that we need to do great work, and convince the business that we should be doing more of this, not less of it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I want to just quickly pivot to venues, because obviously a lot of venues have been shut and staff have been furloughed. So how are venues going to pivot to ensure they can cater for this new era of events, and what's their role in it, Cathy?
Well, for Melia, to start off, I think we rolled out with the Stay Safe with Melia program, which was in collaboration with Bureau Veritas Group. It's a world leader in testing and certification, and that really was designed to ensure the utmost safety of both employees and guests, and all these measures that, in the last 2 weeks, I visited one of our hotels in Tenerife. And some of the measures that you have seen, which are the plastic screens to protect both the guests and the employees, the non-touch points. I was really impressed with the menus. It's now on an app, on your phone. So when you go for lunch or for dinner, there's no more handing you the menus. You all order your lunch and dinner on the apps. So, there's a lot of measures and investments, not just with Melia, but with all companies and venues that have invested for events going forward.
Yeah, and Emma, have you got any thoughts on venue? You work with a lot of venues, obviously, in your role. Have you got any thoughts on how they can ensure that they're going to cater for these new events?
Yeah, so I think, Judy, a key buzzword at the moment is collaboration, and I think you're going to see a lot more collaboration in the industry. Perhaps we were slightly siloed before. So we're working at Warwick Events with Hallcross Hall Hotel and Spa, and we're looking at the assets that they have as a venue. So it's not just about the buildings. They've got amazing people within their wellness centre, nutritionalists, physios. And we're looking at about creating packages that are going to work for the home working environment. We've just been asked by the government to all work from home where we can for the next 6 months. That causes problems. Team building is really, to get that team mentality is really, really difficult through a screen. So I'm seeing that hotels and venues will become a hub of experiences. And they will not just be a room with how many people, boardroom style. They're going to actually try and solve some of the challenges that this new kind of environment we're working in is producing. So I think by collaborating with event agencies and with other kind of people in the supply chain, hotels can really maximize on their assets. They can use their grounds, they can use their chefs. They can use the people that have got a lot of experience within their kind of property and bring that to the corporate market.
I love the word collaboration, and I certainly feel that I think this time and this pandemic has actually made us collaborate more as an industry. I think we all feel we're in one industry together, and I think it's going to kind of open new doors for collaboration, as you say, Emma, and with us all working together for something, for an end product. And actually, while we're on that, we've had a question from the audience about, do you think moving to digital events will affect the culture of our industry? And perhaps I'll give that to David to answer first.
Yeah, and I think, will it change the culture of our industry? Maybe, maybe not. The thing about it is we'll have to all review what skills we've got, okay, and what knowledge that we have. You know, I was literally just on a call this morning with some young people, and you know, they're the ones that the digital natives. They're the ones that have grown up with only knowing, you know, an iPhone in your hand and living online anyway. So dare I say it, the older guys like me with the grey hair need to, you know, get with the program and make sure that we understand the role of digital, the role of how we're going to produce these things in an online environment as well. Will that change us? I think, you know, we do this because we love people. Yeah, well, that's why you're in events usually, because you love people. So as long as we get back to some sense of being us as a community for event people or being able to meet, I think we will continue to evolve, and we'll, you know, we've always evolved over the last 20 years that I've been in events, and I think, you know, now our job to ourselves is to make sure, and I think, you know, as Emma said, you know, collaboration is going to be key, even more than we've ever done it in the past. And, you know, just making sure we all have the right skills to be able to operate in the world where a technology is going to be playing an even bigger part.
And I think as well, so Mike, maybe you can touch on this. I mean, we talked in one of our previous discussions about how everyone's job role is going to change slightly, as in, you know, the sort of traditional job roles that we've seen in event production will change because everyone's going to have to be very technical minded. So how do people maybe upskill themselves for those new job roles, and how do you think that's going to look like, Mike?
Yeah, I think a shift towards virtual or hybrid doesn't remove many of the skills that events people have. You know, the great project managers, creative people. You're just using a different media, a different platform to deliver those things. But obviously, there's a huge reliance on technology and a huge reliance on video. Actually, we found in particular the guys that are supporting the video feeds and making sure they're all smooth and that everyone at home's Wi-Fi is working perfectly and we can all hear us clearly. Those guys are in massive demand right now. You're seeing a shift away from kind of perhaps the physical AV crews right now to those that are able to operate in a virtual capacity themselves. And then I think within the planner community, it's just understanding the way that things work in these environments more, and understanding what you can do to upskill yourself with those.
Yeah, okay. I've got another question from the audience, which is just going back to sort of the venue role, and this is about a physical event. What do you think will happen with live event registration desks? I mean, from my perspective, because I used to work for a registration company, I think they can make them pretty much, you know, touch-free. So you could probably check yourself in on your mobile and print your own badge with no one else touching it. So I think they could still happen, and I believe personally that it's nice to see someone's badge. But perhaps, David, what are your thoughts on that? And then Emma.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think you know, that will be the way it goes. As you say, the technology is already there. You know, we're even seeing facial recognition coming into the systems now. So you just walk up to a kiosk and it'll print your badge for you. Yeah. But to your point, I think though there's no, you can't get away from the fact that we as human beings like to go up to somebody and say hello, and if you can see their name on a nice badge in front of them, it just makes that interaction easier. You know, I often, you know, use the old quote of, you know, your mother and father would tell you don't talk to strangers, but when we do in events, we are forced to talk to strangers, but having their name around their neck enables that conversation to happen very easily. So I think from the technology, we'll just ease our ability to produce those without having to, you know, be wearing wristbands or whatever else that are invisible to you and I for what our name is.
Yeah. Agreed. But Emma, have you got any thoughts? I know that you've done some different things with badges in the past.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, sustainability-wise, lanyards are really, really difficult items to recycle because they're made of two different components. You've got the metal, and then you've obviously got, even if it's a recycled actual kind of ribbon, the PET. So I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, and maybe we'll start to see a change in that you'll wear your own company or your charity lanyard, and that you'll print your badge out before you arrive. But going back to David's point, you know, that's your first moment of being welcomed at an event. That's, you know, that meet and greet is really, really important. And I think the industry, we will get creative on how that can still happen, because otherwise we start stripping the soul out of events. And I don't think we are people pleasers. That's why we do the job that we do. We love to see a smile on a participant's face. We like to hear the laughter, and we don't want to remove that. That would be a really sad day for the event industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you touched on sustainability, because that was in fact where I was going to go next. I mean, I think from a personal point of view, you know, the world is hugely changed due to COVID, and we've seen, you know, what's happened to climate change. We've now seen, yes, we don't all need to travel and get on planes to get to events. We can do that virtually. So how much of the sustainability do you think can we keep in the industry? And I see this as an opportunity for our industry to now really affect change, but I'd like to know some of the panelists' thoughts. So perhaps, Mike, if you could go first on your thoughts on, will sustainability, you know, go forward with this?
Yeah, I think so. I think before COVID hit, we surveyed our customers and event planners, and green issues, sustainability were number one, kind of priority one expectation of where things were going to change for 2020. And obviously the virus hit and suddenly that changed. But I think fundamentally the fact that we're getting used to digital platforms, we're getting used to alternative ways of delivering on event objectives, because as long as the objectives are delivered upon, the media that gets you there, kind of it's irrelevant. So I think those things will have just been accelerated in the same way that we talk about familiarity with the platforms has been accelerated. I think one thing that we will see is the concept of a kind of multi-hub type event becoming more popular. So people are happy to travel, people are happy to meet, but they might not be wanting to fly around the world and the emission impact of that for the purposes of a conference. But if they can gather in multiple hubs and have physical meetings there, but then use technology to connect those hubs, that may be the way forward.
Absolutely. And actually someone has one of the audience has asked that question, away from COVID, what are our, you know, forecast and future trends for events? And I think sustainability is probably the number one. But perhaps, Emma, you could also let us know what you think on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability can sometimes just get wrapped up with offsetting your carbon emissions, banning single-use plastics, which obviously, you know, the amount of waste that all the precautions we have to take now are generating are just vast. But there are 17 different UN sustainable development goals. It's not just thinking about waste and recycling, it's thinking about immersing yourself into the community. You know, events have that have the potential to do huge good, but normally an event comes into a town or a city, it causes extra traffic, we're adding extra, you know, we're using the water, the power from that particular place, and what does it leave that particular place afterwards? We often kind of roll in, we have suppliers from all over the place coming into the area, and then we kind of up sticks and leave. And I'm hoping really that people will start questioning, well, can we use local suppliers? How can we engage the local community? It's a circle, and we need to be thinking about diversity. We need to be thinking about that people are being paid fair wages, our suppliers, and just checking things like that. And although it all sounds really, really daunting, when you actually break it down, it's some really small changes can make a really big difference. Do you really need exhibition carpet? It's it's used once and then it hits landfill. We see the pictures of the Antarctic and the ice melt, and it is our responsibility as a sort of like a heavy resource industry to make those changes and to start reversing the damage that we've done. And as we all know, the number of the resources we're using, we can't sustain life on it anymore. So change has to happen.
And I think this time has made everyone sort of take a breath, and it's a chance for us to reset and start thinking about those topics that perhaps we haven't had the chance to think about because we've just been running so many events. So perhaps this is a good way to stop and think. So kind of I'm looking at the questions and also looking at our own notes of what we were going to talk about, and we are actually coming up to commerciality of events. And one of the questions that came from the audience being about for any events that are perhaps exhibition-led events, and they're struggling to sell the benefits of online. And I just think, and then if you're looking at larger corporate, will organisers need to fund their events in different ways? I mean, and what are the opportunities there? And perhaps Mike, you might have some ideas there for us.
Yeah, definitely. And just apologies to everyone if my video pauses. I'm sharing Wi-Fi at home with the family, as many of us are. I think around the commerciality of events, I think the way to think about it, I always give the analogy on this on watching football teams or sports teams, in that there's real value in attending and watching that team live and seeing them, and it can't be beaten. But at the same time, many of us don't go to every single football game, but watch a lot of it on TV packages where we're both paying for that package, but also we're susceptible to rounds and rounds of advertising whilst we're consuming in that way. And I liken the kind of virtual component of events, particularly when we move to a hybrid world, as being exactly like that, that you can get people into a physical venue and they will pay more and they will have a better experience, but they don't need to do that all of the time. Meanwhile, they will attend some events virtually. And the resulting idea on commerciality is think about how they're packaging it. So you're selling the virtual component as more of a subscription. It's not event by event, but it's actually a subscription to the content that your company is producing on a year-round basis. And similarly, the advertising opportunities. There's enormous amounts of online real estate in your virtual events where adverts can be placed. And there's huge scope for doing really interesting things in those. There's a lot of opportunity to create really interesting, creative videos and get them in front of your audience whilst they're attending sessions, before sessions, after sessions. There are lots of ways to commercialize this. And as an event organizers, we've always sold that logo space. You can sell that logo space online. And similarly, you can also sell the data and analytics. The amount of information we as technology companies are able to collect from audiences now is astronomical, and that's information that's valuable to your sponsors or to people that are paying for the event, because they're getting insights. It's great selling logo space, but really, if I'm paying to sponsor an event, I want leads, I want insights, and I want data. The logo is really secondary. So if we start thinking about it like that, there are huge commercial opportunities in virtual and hybrid events.
Okay, and we're going to kind of stick there, but there's a lot of questions coming through. So these are all new questions to the panel now, so they're not prepared questions. A lot of them are coming through on, again, how do we engage? How do exhibitors engage with the attendees? How do we do something creative? How is that networking facilitated? I'm going to ask all of you, because I feel like this is something that all of us who are organising virtual events at the moment are struggling with, and we're trying different things. So has anyone tried something different that works and has got that networking going, and really, so people have really got some added value? Should we start with Emma, if you've got any good ideas on that?
So as far as engage, I mean, it goes back to purpose again, doesn't it? You've got to look at what the exhibitor, for instance, how they want to engage people. What change do they want from their audience, their potential client? And that's how we've got to start thinking about things, so that that you're getting the engagement that you could have if, you know, I was strolling down an exhibition and started having a conversation one-to-one. That's not necessarily possible, but there are, and Mike will be able to help me out here, but there are platforms where you can then break out, you know, potentially, so that you can have one-to-one conversations. There's, as Mike says, there's like advertising opportunities, but it's considering where those adverts are put. And I think we have to start looking at things like YouTube and how you can take people on a journey. We start to, with the analytics, as Mike was discussing, and the algorithms, you can start predicting what attendees will like. So perhaps it's a little bit further down in the future, but you'll start to be able to say, oh, we see that you've liked this and you've looked at that and you've looked at that. So therefore, as an exhibitor, you effectively go, so you might like our product. So I think that's obviously further down the line, but all of that technology is there. We see it in Amazon, we see it in YouTube, and I think we'll start to see that in the event industry as far as opportunities for sales within that digital environment. But I am not
Absolutely.
a great expert on the digital.
No, but it's also, I think, just fun ways of making people connect and network. Cathy, have you been to any or got any experience of?
I've been thinking about experience over the last couple of weeks. Melia has set up this new Melia Pro Travel Labs community. It's, you know, it's a dedicated platform for event and travel professionals that can get involved in roundtable discussions, virtual site visits. And each week, the platform, we seem to be getting, I mean, there's been trial and error over different sessions each week, a lot of prep work that goes into them. And we've done virtual site inspections where we've been in Tanzania. We've done our first hybrid event program in Dubai last week. So I think there was 60 live and 140 online. So it's like you say, it's trying to get that engagement each week that we try and keep the sessions short, you know, keep within the hour, try and create content that's relevant for clients that are on it. So yeah, I don't have a huge amount of experience, only what we've been doing internally on our platforms.
Mike or David, have you got any other suggestions which we can add to sort of networking opportunities on virtual events?
Yeah, so I'm happy to jump in here, and I think there's lots of ways of improving it. So one of the things that we've really worked upon is kind of signposting people from sessions that they're in and them into sponsor booths or taking them into networking areas, allowing them to take a flow through the event that isn't necessarily attend a session, go back to a lobby, attend a session, go back to a lobby, but taking them on that journey that we were sort of describing that's more like a YouTube experience. And you can use that to push them into sponsor booths and so on. But as somebody that's kind of stood on sponsor booths for the first 12 years of my career and understood that things like the position of your booth is so important, and sometimes you have a day where you're standing there all day and nobody comes over, you kind of got to go push it back to the sponsors and say, look, you've got this opportunity. You've got you've got a virtual booth. You have 12 hours with a camera. You can do product and run competitions. You can run quizzes. You can give incentives to come and see it. You can run speaker sessions every half an hour. It's kind of the same concept. We're giving a virtual platform, but there's immense amounts of creativity that can then be applied within that platform to drive an audience in a particular direction. And I think there's a bit of learning from sponsors there as well. So all of the sort of event organizations have reacted quickly and started delivering virtual events. But the sponsors are used to kind of designing a booth, making it look great, running a competition and getting an actual flow of delegates. Actually, we've all got to work hard to get those delegates into the virtual spaces, just as we did in the physical space. So it's the same challenge. It's just starting to rethink it and working again. It's that kind of partnership, that collaboration approach, which says, how can we get people to not just attend virtual sessions, but to meet people that are selling things or able to give product demos. And I think the technology companies are definitely focused on that. I think that the events organizers are really focused on that because they want to sell sponsor packages. But at the same time, we've now got to lead those sponsors onto a journey and say, how do they get the most out of the platform, not just how do they use it?
Yeah. I agree. And I also think, I mean, from the organizers' point of view, it's almost like you need to be responsible for training your exhibitors. It's like, we're going to put on this event for you to showcase your products, but here's some ideas. And obviously, as you say, you need to be creative and get some different ideas of how you can interact and engage. But kind of some of the onus needs to be on us as organisers to say, you know, here's what I can give you to do. And maybe it's to train you, as you're right. I mean, we've had to train people to actually how to work a trade show booth or trade show stand and get the most leads from that. So it's the same concept. It's just on a digital format. Sorry, David, you were going to add something here.
No, just really building on that. I think absolutely, we've got to think about content in a slightly different way in the virtual world, purely because our attention span is, you know, getting shorter and shorter. Okay, so there's no point in having an hour presentation on your booth, because people are not going to sit there for an hour and listen to it, not unless it's really engaging content. And you know, so we've got to be thinking: is it more, you know, into, dare I say, into the TikTok world, where you've only got a 30-second, you know, video of something or whatever else to engage people as they come past your booth, something like that. You've got to think of new techniques to actually bring them into your virtual space. The other piece that, and you know, as we go into this whole hybrid world as well, I attended an online wine tasting, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, how does that work? But we got sponsors to sponsor the wine to be sent to all the attendees, but we had a real sommelier standing there talking through what the wine was all about. Yeah, and everybody, you know, was almost being instructed, this is how you taste the wine, and this is what you should expect. Let's all have a go at that. But we all got engaged because we wanted to, and we were part of it. So again, I think we've just got to think of perhaps slightly different ways. And I say, it was sponsored. It didn't cost the organizer any money, because it was a great opportunity for the wine person, the wine grower, to actually get their product in front of some potentially, high net value customers like myself. So that's why they wanted to do it. And we've got other things like that I think we can try and get the audiences engaged with different techniques and different ways, and not just do the same old. We have an opportunity to shake up our industry, I think, and really try a few new techniques. And I like Mike's thoughts earlier on about TV style production, and I think some of that is again what we're going to need to bring into our events. If you think about the one show, it's in 15-second segments, okay, but we still tell a whole story within the half hour of the one show. So again, we've got live content and you've got canned content. So again, using all the great techniques and tools that we have available to us, you could be producing a live TV show either in your booth at an exhibition or as your event in total. And I think again, we've got to try to build on some of these new sort of thoughts and ways that have existed, but apply them to our world of events.
Absolutely. Emma, I know you had another comment just on this topic.
Yeah, it's also just spinning it. I mean, we've done this in live events as well, is that to get people interested in your product, your best way of doing that can often be using your own customers. So, getting people to engage so that they're if you've got a problem and someone else has already had the same problem as you and it's been fixed by a product or a service, that's and with the ability to pre-record, just going back to what David said, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Because you can actually get some real life stories coming through about the increased sales you might have seen, or the problem that's been solved from someone, a number of different people. So as far as that, there are lots of opportunities to really engage. It's far more than there were probably.
Absolutely. So we've only got about 5 minutes left. We're going to go back to the questions from the audience. We've had a few people asking about Christmas parties. I think after the news yesterday, everyone's probably like, oh, does that mean we're not having Christmas parties? Emma, I think you said that you would take this one.
The C word. Yeah, I'll take the C word.
Yeah.
And it's not COVID for a change.
Yeah.
Christmas is going to be completely different. We've all seen that pantomimes have been cancelled, markets have been cancelled, Father Christmas in his grotto has been cancelled. we've got to, as an industry, look at the different opportunities that are around. We can still do business meetings up to 30 people. That means you can still do team activities up to 30 people. Get those team activities to be concentrated around doing something Christmassy, whether that's making a wreath, a gingerbread house, or whatever. The same goes virtually. You can get a gingerbread house kit, and you can have a competition, and people can make it at home. So it all depends on what the corporates are comfortable with, whether they are comfortable locally gathering together in maybe a group of 10 and doing something that's hands-on, and that they actually hear laughter and see faces in 3D. So there won't be Christmas parties, but there are ways round of still getting a great Christmas festive experience.
Oh, let's hope so. I hope we can still have some fun. And another question from the audience was about career options, really, and what advice would you give to students who are coming out and perhaps they've just got an event management degree? The event industry obviously is looking like it's shrinking. It's quite scary for quite a few of us, to be honest. I mean, I just wanted to quickly say on that, we're all from MPI and we're looking for students who want to volunteer and get some experience on organising some events. And obviously you can hit me up on LinkedIn. But David, I know this is close to your heart as well.
Absolutely, and I think really from a, I always talk about skills and knowledge rather than necessarily just experience. And there's a lot of transferable skills. And if you're, I don't know, a young person that's coming out of college or university, you are, as I mentioned earlier, you're digital native, okay? You've grown up with the digital. So use that experience that you may have in your personal life, whether you create your own YouTube videos, whether you create your own, Instagram pages and things like that. Those sorts of skills will be needed in the world of events in the future. So, talk up those sorts of experiences you've had in terms of looking for jobs. It's quite clear, though, again, I think I mentioned earlier, I'd had a conversation with a few young people this morning, and, they're all going, I can't get a job because I haven't got any, virtual event experience. And they probably have, they just don't know about it, because they probably are doing this sort of thing. Either at college or at university already. They're already using the tools. Now it's just a matter of being able to apply that to the world of work. And they probably have a better chance of it than I do in trying to convert myself into this digital world. So, the key thing is, you've got skills, just try and articulate those in the world of work and the world of online events.
And just on that, someone's asked as well about, seems to be quite a bit of digital certification or planners that are digitally or hybrid certified. What are your thoughts on getting certified? David and Mike, I'd ask that too as well.
Yeah, so most of the digital platforms will have a certification program. And again, it's worth doing. It may be a bit of investment in your time. They often don't cost anything. And in fact, a number of them are offering certification for free at the moment. So go do it. Spend the time, get the certification, and then try and find a way of applying that in an event that you can do, maybe just with your friends, so that you can practice what you've learned on the certification program before you put yourself in front of a real life client.
I think there's a really good course there, Judy, just to mention. It's the fundamentals of digital marketing with Google Garage, and I think it's free for a certain amount of time period. I was looking at it myself a couple of weeks ago, so definitely recommend it's a 30-hour module course to look it up, anyone that's interested in doing it.
Good point, Cathy. Yeah.
So anyone else want to bring up any topics or mention anything that we haven't? We've only got a minute left, so really I was going to sort of see if we wanted to wrap up, but any of the panelists want to give a last shout out?
Just obviously on the 30th of September, we all need to stand together to light any buildings in red, any venues, and just check out We Make Events.
And I was just going to add, we're running hybrid events today. So I know that the recent government changes might feel like a setback to the industry, and the move towards hybrid rather than pure virtual may be delayed, but these things are happening. Even if it's just presenters in the same room. I think whilst these experiences with us in many different places are okay, once you even get the presenters together, the dynamic changes, and that's, for me, that's the next step for the industry.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
agree, yeah,
and I think so. Just to wrap up, everyone, please do, if we haven't answered your questions, please do reach out to us on LinkedIn or come to an MPI session. We're all on the board of MPI, and we'd love to welcome you to one of our sessions as well, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.